I always feel like at the beginning of these videos, I look like a dumpster fire.
No,
like,
you don't.
You know, I grow my beard out and suddenly I've got this dumpster fire on my face and they're like, hi, I'm Matty Conrad, I'm a men's grooming expert. Hey GQ, it's Matty Conrad, and I'm back. So is my beard. But today we're gonna focus on something different. That charismatic cultural icon, the mustache. Throughout history, the mustache has been a bold statement of confidence and affluence for many fashionable men. Around the turn of the century, a very tight tailored mustache became very, very vogue. Think guys like Clark Gable and Errol Flynn. These guys exuded style, and a lot of it was wrapped up in their upper lip. George Harrison in the 1960s, just about everybody in the 1970s. Nothing embodies the 1980s mustache like Tom Selleck. Hollywood A-listers like Johnny Depp, Brad Pitt, Idris Elba, and Eddie Murphy. All of them know how to rock a properly tamed tache. And today we're gonna go through several styles that are gonna give you a little bit of a better idea of which one might be perfect for you. Some guys can grow a burly, thick mustache, and other guys, not so much. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a mustache shape for everyone. So the tools I'm gonna be using today are an adjustable clipper to remove the bulk, a trimmer for outlining, a fine tooth comb for my mustache, and I'm going to use a wide tooth comb for my beard. So I've grown my beard back out, but along the way there were a few styles and shapes that I kind of wanted to come back to. Today I'm gonna turn this into a style that a lot of you have referred to as a beard stache, but I call it the brogue. Now, this kind of style is usually a very amplified and pronounced mustache with a much tighter looking trimmed down beard, so that the mustache is more prominent than the beard itself. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna use my comb to protect the length of my mustache by combing it out of the way. I'm then gonna take my adjustable clipper with a number 2 guard, and I'm going to work downwards to remove the bulk of the beard on the sides. I'm always working downwards because I want a smoother finish. As soon as I go upwards into the beard, I'm gonna lose a lot more hair than I wanted to. Now, I don't want to take everything right down to a number 2 because that's gonna leave my beard maybe a little shorter than I want it, and I wanna maintain just a little bit of beard shape. I'm gonna take my clipper without a guard, inverted, and I'm gonna punch a line from where I want the length of the beard to be right towards my Adam's apple. I'm gonna do this right across to create a nice strong ledge along the bottom that is gonna peak up slightly into the corner rather than flat and square. Now to create a more pronounced mustache, I need to take the hair on my chin a little shorter. So I'm gonna go back to my number 2 guard, I'm gonna lift my mustache up the opposite way, and then we're gonna work downwards over the chin. Now that we've got the shape roughed in and relatively cleaned up, one of the more important things about this kind of style is the outline. And the outline is why I call it the brogue. Once the shape is put in and we create that rounded outline on top, it looks like the pattern you'd find on top of a brogue shoe. Creating the outline for a brogue style is gonna require an electric trimmer. And the electric trimmer is gonna get things really nice and tidy and outlined. The most important line of this entire shape is the top line. If you're somebody that has a very full face shape, you want that line to be as straight and linear as possible. But if you're somebody with a more narrow face shape or even a standard face shape, you want that line to be slightly curved. I'm gonna create a top line that goes from the corner of my sideburns right towards the point of my mustache. And to create that nice curvature, I'm gonna take my skin, I'm gonna stretch it upwards, and I'm gonna punch a straight line right down from the corner of my sideburn towards the corner of my mustache. Now you wanna make sure that your mustache really stands out. So I'm gonna push the mustache down, and I can see a little hair in the corner. You wanna remove all that hair. And the easiest way to do that is by turning the trimmer to the flat side and working away from that line that you've created. Much better. Let's do that on the opposite side. Now we need to tackle your baseline. And this is the line that we put in right at the bottom of the beard. We wanna make sure that's really nice and clean and drops slightly towards the jawline to create that fuller jaw shape. So I'm gonna take my line here and just clean up what I've already created to make sure it's nice and crisp. I'm then gonna take the hair on my neck as tight as I can take it with my trimmer. To get this line even on both sides, the best trick is to make sure you keep looking straight ahead. Don't turn your head because you won't be able to see this side when you're working on this side. Keep your head straight into the mirror and use the angle of your trimmer to create your line. Now we want to make sure that the back line is cleaned up. These are the little hairs that grow backwards over the jawline. It also grows into your ears. And that's the stuff that when it gets long, means it's time for a haircut. Now that we've got the beard shape, it's time to focus on the feature of today's style, which is the mustache. Every mustache is broken down into two parts. The peak, which is the center part of the mustache, and the points, which is the outer part of the mustache. So for a shape like this, I like to create a slightly shorter peak and longer points. Now you can use a trimmer, which is gonna create a really hard, clean line, or if you want something more organic, you can use a small pair of scissors. For longer mustaches, I like to use scissors. It creates a softer look. So to do that, I'm gonna take a comb and I'm gonna comb my mustache straight down. You can see when I comb my mustache down, it already creates a natural kind of horseshoe or like a peak over top of my lip. But mustaches should flow out to the sides. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a center line using my comb. I'm gonna place it under my nose and I'm gonna pull the hair on one side of my mouth out of the way. Then I'm gonna start in the center and I'm gonna create a nice peak shape using my scissors, working downwards. Now that we've cleaned up the peak, it's time to deal with the points of the mustache. Now these are gonna be kind of a personal choice. Some guys like really long curly Q kind of styles, and some guys just like them to be really nice and clean. And that can best be done by just taking them with a comb and working on the outside, cleaning whatever's left over. Now the further you take your comb down, the longer the outside of the points is gonna be. But I also have a different way that I like to do this because I like more of an old-timey style to my mustache. There's lots of guys that I've seen that have curly little mustaches that look really thick and bushy in the middle with little waxed tip points. And I don't like that. I like mine to still look kind of natural. So the trick that I like to use is I take a matte texturizing product to put into my mustache to get a little bit of control before I use a blow dryer and some heat to shape it the way I want it. I'm gonna use a little bit of a matte finish paste here called Super Dry by Barber brand, just a tiny amount. And I'm gonna work it between my fingertips and work it into my mustache before I hit it with a blow dryer. Now already you can start to see that it creates a little bit of an uptick. But like most guys, I always seem to have one side that does it really easily and one side that wants to flop down. That's why I'm gonna use my blow dryer. I'm gonna take my comb and my blow dryer and I'm gonna use high heat. The reason I use high heat when I'm styling facial hair is because facial hair acts very much like plastic does. When you heat it up, it gets really soft and bendy. And when you cool it down again, it gets rigid and stiff, just like plastic. So I'm gonna heat my hair up, sculpt it into shape, and then I'm gonna cool it down in the shape that I want it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take my comb, create a center line, and push one side out of the way. Then I'm gonna use my airflow to direct the hair in the opposite direction on my lip to make sure that it spreads apart rather than just hangs straight down. I'm then gonna use the airflow pointed upwards at the ends, which is gonna create more of my curve. Once I'm finished, I'm gonna take just a little tiny bit more product to get rid of the frizz and make sure that mustache looks nice and solid. Now that we have the mustache styled and shaped, I can see just little frizzy guys pointing off the ends of the points, and I want those to look relatively solid and balanced on either side. So what I'm gonna do then is just take my scissors and I'm gonna take off the very tips to make sure they're nice and even. Handsome, no? What do you think? Now that we've created my stylish stash, let's show you a few of the other options you can look for on some of my clients. This mustache is made popular in the 1960s and carried right through until the 1980s when it was made most famous by Hulk Hogan. It's very commonly misreferred to as a handlebar mustache, but a handlebar mustache is in fact a longer mustache that has a twisty rise to it on the ends and looks like the handlebars of an old bicycle. Now, the classic horseshoe has two sidelines that drop right down and terminates somewhere around the chin, but the more modern horseshoe breaks just below the bottom lip. My first client is Gerb, and he has a slightly rounder face shape, and we're gonna do a classic horseshoe style on him. Now, for guys with fuller face shapes, I don't always like to shave all of the rest of the hair completely off the face. They have a tendency to look a little bit better if we leave just a tight stubble, because it allows us to do a little bit of contouring and make his face look leaner. To create a tight stubble for Gerb, I'm gonna take a number 1 guard on my adjustable clipper and I'm gonna run all the way around his face, making sure that I protect the areas where I want to keep the mustache. Those are usually inside the smile line areas. Once we've done that, I'm gonna outline it using my trimmer to create a nice strong shape on his jaw, and then we're gonna outline the top line using a straight razor. At this point, I wanna try and keep the line as angular as possible to give him a leaner look. Once we've established the shape of the mustache, making sure that we've left the sides nice and long, I'm gonna clean up the edges lightly using a pair of scissors. If I turn the scissors on their side, I'm not gonna be cutting into the stubble. I'll just be able to create a slightly cleaner outline for the mustache and the imperial. So now that we've completed a classic horseshoe on Gerb, you can see that it's a little rougher looking, it's a little more organic, and it's not perfectly polished up. This creates more of a feeling of a 70s style mustache and has a little bit more of a badass vibe, which really is the point of this kind of a mustache. The way to transition between a classic horseshoe and a modern horseshoe is just about the length of the sidelines. Classic horseshoe, the lines are gonna terminate somewhere around the chin. For a modern horseshoe, that line is gonna terminate somewhere just below the bottom lip. A cleaner, more modern version of this mustache can be seen on celebrities like The Weeknd or Idris Elba. These guys have got their mustache tamed down nice and tight, and they've reduced the length of those sidelines to just below their mouths. One of the things you're gonna find very commonly accompanying this type of mustache is a little patch of hair below the bottom lip that we refer to as the imperial. Now that's there to stretch out the face shape. If you're somebody with a slightly fuller face shape that's looking for a more elongated look than a mustache will provide you, then just leave that little patch of hair below your lip. You'll be surprised what a difference it makes in elongating the shape of your face. So to transition this style into a more modern version of a horseshoe, we're gonna take the sides of the mustache and we're gonna raise them up. Instead of having them terminate at the chin, we're actually gonna bring those up a little bit so they drop down below the sides of the mouth just slightly. A good way to determine how long these should be is to take your comb and place it in the divot between your lower lip and your chin. Keep your comb level. At that point is where we should terminate the ends of the mustache. We're also gonna take the edges of the mustache and define them more clearly, giving it a slightly more squared look. This is gonna give it a more modern appearance and make you look just a little bit trimmer and tidier. This style of mustache is perfect for a fuller face shape because it creates a slightly more elongated look. Even though the points don't go all the way down to the chin, just drawing them down past the mouth slightly stretches the bottom of the face and gives you a leaner look. My next client is Jason, and Jason has something that a lot of guys run into where their mustache doesn't necessarily connect to the rest of their beard, and there's a little patch that doesn't seem to want to grow hair. He also has a narrow face shape, which means he's ideal for being able to take this down nice and clean. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take down the cheeks using just my trimmer, which is gonna leave just a tiny hint of stubble. Now I'm not gonna remove that entirely quite yet, because what we're gonna create for him is an anchored mustache style. And an anchored mustache style means that the top is a strong mustache, but there's a disconnected small beard underneath and creates kind of an anchor shape. To create this, we're gonna make sure that we work inside the smile lines and create a clear definition between the mustache and the beard. One of the most important things about trying to keep this as a contained style is making sure that the beard component is inside the points of the mustache. This kind of style has a little bit more of a grunge feel to it. Guys like Johnny Depp can be seen wearing this pretty regularly. There's a reason why I didn't take all of the stubble away. It gives it just a slightly more lived in feel. This is an ideal style for guys that have ultra sparse growth on their cheeks or guys that have a disconnected mustache from the rest of their beard. It still gives you lots of style points, but doesn't amplify the struggles that you're having trying to fill in your cheeks or that little point right next to your mouth. Tom Selleck's mustache shape is what we refer to as a chevron. And a chevron is basically paralleled on both sides, two square shapes that descend towards the outside of the lip. and break just at the corner of the mouth. Now, a classic chevron is gonna be left a little fuller and a little thicker, but the modern chevron is shorter, leaner, and cleaner. Most recently, you're gonna be able to see this mustache style on actors like Milo Ventimiglia and Joe Jonas. But this kind of mustache does require a bit of a thicker girth on your upper lip, so it's not an ideal style if you only grow a few whiskers up top there. A chevron mustache has a strong baseline that's angled slightly down from the center, and the exact same angle is mimicked for the top of the mustache from the nostrils down out towards the outside of the mouth. I'm gonna start by removing the goatee, but I'm still gonna leave a little bit of an imperial. I'm not sure why, I just really like the way this looks. Then we're gonna really clearly outline the mustache and make sure all of the lips are cleaned up above the top lip and the outline is nice and square. Now this is a slightly leaner looking mustache that extends past the corners of the mouth outwards. This is kind of a cooler old school look. Think old Hollywood vibes on this one. This kind of mustache is a little thicker in the middle and is tapered down to slightly tighter points at the end. It's also usually notched out in the center to create a nice clean center line, separating both sides of the mustache. This type of mustache can be left a little longer like this to create more of a pronounced looking style. This is an excellent choice for guys that don't have super thick growth on their upper lip. To create this kind of a mustache, you want to start by setting a really strong lip line. Make sure that it's nice and square and extends from the high point in the middle and descends slightly towards the outside of the lip. Then we're gonna start reducing the length on top of the lip. We wanna leave this thicker in the middle, so we're gonna create a slightly steeper point going from the inside of the nostril all the way down towards the point of the mustache. To balance out the imperial, we're gonna take our scissors from the corner of the mustache and angle them downward. This is gonna create sort of a diamond shape that's gonna balance out the shape of the mustache. This is one of my favorite styles of mustache because it's a strong look. In the 1920s, guys like Clark Gable and Errol Flynn wore this kind of mustache, and they just exuded a certain kind of charisma and charm and confidence. To start this mustache, we're gonna further clean up the lip line to make sure that it sits just above the upper lip. Then we're gonna angle our trimmer down, and we're gonna push the mustache down on top to make it thinner and make sure that that point is aiming right towards the corner of the mouth. To further amplify this, we're gonna reduce the size of the imperial, and we're gonna clean up all of the rest of the stubble on the face until he looks clean shaven. And you know what? I've changed my mind. Let's get rid of the imperial altogether. There you have it, GQ. Now you know how to shave 7 different mustache styles. Now, if you are a little bit hesitant about getting a mustache and not sure if you have what it takes to wear one yourself, just remember, it's not what you're wearing, it's how you wear it. People are mostly attracted to confidence. I really believe that there's a mustache for every personality type out there. And as always, if you're having trouble trying to find that perfect facial hairstyle for you, go and see your barber. They're full of great advice and can help you get the exact look that you're going for. Thanks a lot for joining me again today, GQ. Check out all of our other videos for all of your facial hair grooming needs. And until I see you next time, good luck and good grooming.